Many years ago, there was a movie that came out. 1992, I believe, was the year. And it starred Tom Cruise, but one of the co-stars of the movie was this guy, Kevin Bacon, playing a character named Captain Jack Ross. And the plot of the movie was that they were lawyers, there had been death down at Gitmo, and Tom Cruise's character was defending the two defendants, who, of course, because it's Hollywood, were being railroaded by the evil military. And this guy, Captain Jack Ross, played by Kevin Bacon, was the prosecuting attorney. Now, the movie itself is generally considered a pretty good movie. It's one that I do like. But, like most movies, it's Hollywood. So, of course, there are things about it that are not accurate. Not just compressed for time or combined to be an amalgamation of a character or anything like that. But I mean, there are things that are just flat out not right, whether you're talking about the military or the military justice system or the legal system in general in this movie. There are some very questionable things. But at the beginning of the trial, Captain Ross stands in front of the jury and he explains to them the outline of the case. One of the final things he says is, now, the defense is going to use a lot of big words and a lot of secret sounding words and confusing words and that sort of thing, and they're gonna dazzle you with a whole bunch of official sounding stuff. But they still won't have any evidence. Mind you, none, he says. And at the end of the day, the victim is still dead, and these two people killed him. I fixated on lately on that idea that he shares, that no matter what goes on in this courtroom, no matter what Perry Mason-esque display happens, they won't have any evidence. None, mind you, none. And the remarkable thing about the movie, if you watch it, is this turns out to be true. The defense has no evidence. In fact, there are two star witnesses. Later on, we find out that, well, what were they going to testify to? If I recall, they're going to testify to the fact that they had no memory of anything. They were just a ruse. The problem with the plot of the movie, of course, is that Lieutenant Caffey, Tom Cruise, is much more brilliant than everyone else, and he maneuvers them into giving away the case and giving away the issues, whereas in reality that would not only not happen, it wouldn't even be admissible in court, and it creates this idea in our heads that this is how things work. They still never offered any proof. They never did. They just basically got somebody else to admit to doing something that wasn't killing the guy. But, you know, if you know the movie, you know the plot line. Still no proof that they didn't do it. It intrigues me because my Facebook feed, my news feed, constantly filled with things that just, I'm not even sure why I do it. I follow a site. You're going to know the name of the site here in a second, the DC Clothesline. I don't know why I follow it. I've been following it since the days of Jade Helm. That's how long I've been following this site, because it's so entertaining to me. Outlandish claims that they'll make with no evidence whatsoever. None. And when their claims turn out to be false, what do? They take one of two approaches. The first approach is they just ignore it and they pretend it never happened. That's the more common one. The second one is, of course, they say, well, it would have happened, but it didn't because we stopped it, because we made it so prevalent. That's what their claim about Jade Helm was. The Walmart camps. At any rate, yesterday they had a post about the Canadian government publishes a bid request for, quote, programmable hydraulic guillotines that were needed, quote, in support of Canada's response to COVID-19, unquote. And like me, maybe you would click on this article, maybe you wouldn't. I did. And promptly realized that once again, I was headed down a black hole. Black hole of nonsense. But these are the kinds of things that can be presented with no evidence whatsoever, mind you, none. But for some reason, and I kind of know what that reason is, people will believe it. I go back to my own life experience. I grew up, most of you know this, I'm from Oklahoma, my ancestral home. And Oklahoma it's not a place I would want to live. Not because it's not nice. It is. It's very nice. It just isn't me. There's no ocean. There's no mountains. I need one of those two things, and preferably I need both of them, which is why Washington is so great. It's why California was great. I need mountains and oceans. And there are no mountains in Oklahoma, despite what they tell you. And there's certainly no oceans there, although there are some pretty big lakes, which I learned to sail on as a kid. A lot of why I ended up in the Navy. I think, though, if you were to be realistic about it, the thing that Oklahoma is most famous for is the 1940s musical Oklahoma. That musical is, well, we grew up with it as mandatory watching. Just a part of our structure, I guess, as Oklahomans. We always watched it. It featured a character by the name of Ali Hakim. Ali Hakim is, in the words of one recent website that I read, the only non-white character in the story, which is ridiculous because he's played by Eddie Albert. There on the right, if you're looking at the screen. And Ali Hakim is a peddler who sells snake oil. He likes fine things. He likes women. He sells other things as well. But his primary job is to get people to buy crap that they don't really need and don't really want. But if they give him their money, well, then he's okay. And we refer to this as selling snake oil. Once upon a time, there were actual snake oil salesmen in this country who sold potions called snake oil that were basically just alcohol. And they would sell it as medicinal, purposes. They would sell it for medicinal purposes. People would drink this stuff and they would get drunk. There's one of the funniest episodes of I Love Lucy by Amita Benjamin, really about this kind of thing. These snake oil salesmen, of course, would charge buttloads of money for this crap, and it was basically just watered down alcohol, which, again, in Oklahoma is kind of an interesting thing because Oklahoma was the driest of dry states under Prohibition. Oklahoma didn't actually repeal Prohibition until well into the 1950s. It still, probably because of its experience with the Native American tribes, has a large reserve reticence about the use of alcohol. It's probably one of the reasons why my family was so involved with the Salvation Army, the world's largest temperance organization. And it all kind of makes sense in a weird sort of way. My grandfather, who is of blessed memory, was one of those people that I wish I had known better, I guess, in a way. Like most people, he's one of those people that, maybe you do, maybe you don't, I don't know. By the time I was old enough to know what to talk to him about, he was gone. But we did have some conversations, and one of the most interesting conversations he and I had was about his hatred, and I mean dripping hatred, for snake oil salesmen. Now, in some ways he used it metaphorically, but he also was clearly talking about the actual people selling actual bottles of snake oil. And it kind of intrigued me as to, I couldn't figure out why he was so passionate about this. I mean, I don't like people that buy stupid ideas and stupid crap, but hey, it's your money. It's your brain. You can do it if you want. I'm going to laugh at you for it, but there are things that I do that you probably think are weird too. Years later, around, it had to be 1991, I had the opportunity to spend a few days with my grandfather in his later years. And I was going through the attic. I was going through some boxes and stuff and trying to put stuff in order. And I came across a photo. And with this photo was also a school certificate that listed Herbert, that was his first name, Herbert Milhone Bowman, which was weird to me because his middle name was Melvin, not Milhome. And I took it downstairs and I asked him about it. I showed him the picture and he got really mad. Where did you find this? What? I want to throw that out. And fortunately I didn't. For those of you looking at the video, that child in the middle is my grandfather. And this is a picture of the Milhone traveling show, which he referred to that day as carnies, snake oil salespeople. He got dragged into this pretty much against his will. My great-grandmother had left my great-grandfather, married into this Milhone family, and Grandpa was basically, he was a kid, he was compelled to be a part of this snake oil sales stuff, and he, to that day, well into his 70s and 80s, was still mad about this. It was a passion for things that you rarely see in a lot of ways, especially from someone who is as religious as my grandfather was, which is probably why he was so angry about it, why he was so angry about the idea of tricking people into believing foolish things. And of course, this tied in with his faith, and he believed that people who believed too much in science were foolish people. He believed, anybody that, and I hate to say it today, but he believed anybody that would vote for a Democrat was. My grandfather believed that reading the Sunday funnies, comics on a Sunday paper, was a sin. He believed to his dying day that the NFL, the National Football League, was a communist conspiracy. Okay, everybody has their weirdness, and I get that. But he really hated people who tricked other people into believing things that were not true. Selling them snake oil is what he would refer to that as. He hated that. The idea here is people will believe things if, like Lieutenant Caffey in the movie A Few Good Men, can make it sound believable. I say this to people all the time. It's not what is said, it's how it's said. It's who says it more than what is said, because people don't really pay attention to what is said. They hear what they want to hear. You know this. I'm not telling you anything you don't already know. I've been involved in conversations where recorded conversations where people distinctly said something, but everybody else hears what they want to hear. It's remarkable. The bigger problem, of course, comes about we live in a world now where, like the DC clothesline, people can put out a headline, they can put something on Facebook, they can put something on social media, and people go, ooh, it must be true. How many posts have we seen over the past few days, past couple of weeks? Oh, this happened. This is going to happen. This is what's happening. There was a post the other day. How come Obama never encouraged Hillary to concede? Well, why is he going after Trump to concede when he never did it for Hillary? Well, it literally takes a 5-second Google search to find multiple articles that talk about Obama calling Hillary on election night going, you're going to lose. You need to concede. The problem is people believe what they want to believe. They see a meme, lock onto it. Well, it must be true. It's on the internet. It must be true, right? It came to me the other day because I saw a phrase that I love, a phrase that I regularly use myself, has suddenly changed meanings. You know what that phrase is, of course? Release the Kraken. When some gal that I, quite frankly, had never really, I guess I'd heard the name before, but I really wasn't paying that much attention, used the phrase and used it in a way that implies that she's going to release the Kraken being the evidence of election shenanigans and election stuff that's going to magically overturn the election, and Trump is still going to be president. Well, question you got to ask yourself is, okay, is this just Ali Hakim selling me crap? Is this just a snake oil salesman telling me this will cure all your ills? Or are we listening to Captain Ross saying, okay, she's going to use a lot of big sounding words, a lot of impressive sounding phrases. She's going to make a lot of accusations. She might even bite into an officer or two. But in the end, where's the proof? And this is the problem that I have with this whole thing. This is the problem that I have with it. It isn't that there probably was election manipulation. I don't doubt that at all. Can you prove it? I can't. I'm not going to sit here and tell you that I have the proof. Don't send me your Facebook post saying, but Dave, here is the proof. No, it's not. It's a Facebook post. It's a YouTube video. How many years have I been telling you, don't believe anything you see on YouTube? Don't believe anything you see. Why do I say that? Because nothing you see on YouTube is real. No, you think this is what my studio looks like? No, it's not even close to that. It's a freaking mess. Because I had a bad day yesterday and I didn't feel like cleaning anything up. It's just a picture of my studio in front of a green screen. So you get this concept here where people can say things to you, they can show you things, but without the context and without the cross-examination and without the requirement of actual testing, how do you know it's true? You can say release the Kraken all you want, but here's the problem, folks. There's no such thing as a Kraken. It's a mythological beast. It never existed. It was something that sailors in ancient times made up. Why? Because they couldn't explain what was going on, and they needed something to rationalize their fear. It was snake oil. It was something that they believed in, not because there was any proof of it, but because there was no proof of it, and there was no way to prove them to be wrong. When we say this, for all I know, and I'll be the first one to admit it when it happens, for all we know, she has all this proof in the world, and she's going to rush out there and somehow or another present all this, and ta-da, Trump's going to be president again. I don't believe that. I think in your heart of hearts, you don't believe that either. In fact, you know it can't be true, but for some reason, we keep buying the snake oil. We keep buying the bottles of snake oil because, it did make us feel good for a little while. It kind of worked a little bit, right? And then maybe I need more of it. Maybe instead of one shot, snake oil, maybe I need 2 shots of snake oil. Maybe that'll help. And eventually you're hooked on the snake oil and you still don't have any proof of what you're saying. That's the problem. The DC Clothesline has the same problem. They present these stories like I was talking about there. The Canadian government publishes a bid request for programmable hydraulic guillotines. If you read their story, they actually go into a definition of guillotine, and they talk about how, this, that, and the other thing, and the guillotine is used to cut people's heads off. And this is how the Canadian government is going to deal with COVID-19. Now, in your head of heads, you're going, that's absurd. Number one, No government would do that, and if any government in the world would, it certainly wouldn't be Canada. But these people want to believe that. By the way, it literally takes a 5-second Google search to find a website called mybinding.com, which is a bookbinding place that has a 4max 20.5-inch hydraulic programmable guillotine cutter for $16,695. Although I'm sure if you mention this ad, they'll knock 10% off probably. Just tell them Dave sent you. In case you want a programmable guillotine cutter. Because what would you use that for in dealing with COVID? I don't know. Maybe they're printing a lot of books about a lot of paper, a lot of government guidelines as to how to deal with things. But instead, mind you, without any facts at all, without any proof at all, people are going off about Canada's going to cut people's heads off. Because that's the only use for a guillotine, website says. Releasing the Kraken might make you feel better, might make you feel good. It's like a bottle of snake oil or some good Wyoming whiskey. Might make you feel good for a little while. But it's not going to change any of the reality. It's not going to change anything that's really going on, is it? Because at the end of the day, you still have to prove it. And going on air, going on social media, and saying you're going to do something, the same as doing it, is it?